So moving on here, just a brief description for those who are not totally familiar with Clarity. I just want to talk about very quickly just about what Clarity is for here. So of course our purpose with Clarity is to really make BIM coordinators' lives better, and really the users too, by taking care of the repetitive manual tasks and provide insight into your firm's usage of Revit. That's really the ultimate goal of Clarity here. And Clarity has some key features. Automation, of course, is the main interest here, where we can take many of the mundane tasks, such as printing PDFs and sending models back and forth and backing things up and automating that. We also now have the ability to take insights into our projects and look for model metrics and make sure our projects are running smoothly and not violating any firm standards and performance metrics and such. And of course, we have the ability for data reporting, so we're able to pull very selective data out of our projects and organize them into reports and data sheets, and even make the ability to have bidirectional edits there as well. So again, Clarity, very quickly, we're able to automate workflows for printing and exporting of tasks, PDFs, AutoCAD, things like that, of course, images out of the rooms, images from your project, data standards, extracting model metrics out, again, taking a file, cleaning it up, then sending it to a partner that we're working with, extracting and uploading files into Collaboration for Revit, tracking changes in our projects, viewing them in the web portal so the non-Revit users have the ability to use our viewer to see the information. Obviously, there's a lot of IT aspects, backing up the project, backing up files that are in BIM 360 and such. And then also harvesting content from our projects, such as analyzing families or pulling the families out and storing them in a directory. And custom tasks as well that you can create, Dynamo tasks that you can use Clarity to automate to make them more accessible to your standard users. So now, leaving that behind, I want to move into 2020 and what's new. So first of all, with Clarity 2020, it supports Revit Server 17, 18, 19, and 20, of course. And we do have some limited support for 2016 tasks. You just need to install 2019 task server on the computers in order to run those if you have some legacy files. So these are some of the new features now that we've introduced in this version of Clarity. So we have some infrastructure changes to the system tasks, forge tasks, update or service OAuth settings for multiple credentials there. User interface enhancements, we've updated our task tool and made it easier to manage current completed tasks. We have project enhancements, we can make our projects inactive and easily rescan the data within them, and I'm going to cover, of course, all these features individually here. We have some brand new features. We have project and cross-project query functions and tracking models that aren't in the system, and tracking how much time we're spending in our models now are available. We have some new and improved tasks, such as ones where we can transfer standards, so we can automate that transfer project standards function that we have in Revit right now. And some simpler Dynamo scripts, and also synchronizing with Box and Dropbox and ProjectWise and such. So the first thing we're going to be talking about here is this kind of the Windows task service. So with a standard task server, it has to run in a logged in session, as we know, has to launch Revit, the right version of Revit to run a certain task. Of course, it's running the Revit tasks. The Windows task service is a separate kind of task processor that will be installed on the task server. So this doesn't even have to be logged in because it's a service. It can be just running in the background on any computer. And it can basically run certain tasks that don't really require Revit to run. So it's always ready. It cannot run Revit tasks, but it can run certain things such as file copy, ProjectWise copy, SharePoint, and in the future some AutoCAD copying as well. So again, there's a setting in the task server where you can allow a Windows service to run, and it will process the Windows-specific tasks that do not require Revit to run. So if you have an issue with licenses being used and you want to reduce the usage of the licenses on the task server, this can certainly help. We also have some integration with Forge Design. So we built another Windows service in here, so we can use Forge Design here as allowing us to run certain tasks in the Forge environment. So the Windows task server can take certain task types and run them in Forge. So this task, the task service that we have will coordinate the upload of models and so on. Now, just be aware, though, if you're using the Forge service, this is a charge service from Autodesk. You're going to be charged cloud credits for every hour of processing. And basically, kind of use this as a hybrid task server model and overflow for certain types of tasks, possibly model health, some print export tasks, and so on in this current release of 2020. But again, just be aware that this still is a public beta from Autodesk as well, so we're keeping up to date with that, but they're still testing it as well. And as Autodesk improves that, will improve and increase the functionality that we can maybe offload into the BIM Forge environment. So this is another advancement here when it comes to updating the task server. So every once in a while, as you will know, you'll get a notification from IMAGINiT that there's updates available for Clarity and or for the task server, sometimes just for the host, sometimes for the task servers only, sometimes for both. And so I believe it was last year or a year before, we introduced an ability to update the task servers right from the host page. They update task servers. The problem was that the UAC would say, hey, are you sure you want to edit this or allow an update to happen? So you have to physically usually be at the physical task server to run the update. So you couldn't just automate it. So now we have a service that's running. That service will be pre-authenticated to make changes to the system. So you won't be getting this question anymore. You'll be able to take the service and give it this authority. So when you hit the Upgrade All button down there, you'll be able to update the task servers remotely. And this is going to be especially useful for really large organizations that have, maybe a dozen or more task servers. Instead of having to go to each one and make sure it's been updated, you can upgrade them all from a single place. So a very powerful tool there for maintaining patches and keeping Clarity up to date. Another nice new setting here is the ability to have multiple credentials for OAuth. So basically your OAuth settings are your login credentials for BIM 360, for Box, for Dropbox. So as you can see here, I can have multiple people signed in and I can assign them to different projects. When I create a project or a task, I can assign that to specific members so that when that project's created, I can use those credentials. So if I'm in Clarity here, and when I'm adding a project, and if I'm going to make that project a BIM 360 Next Gen project, I can come in and use a specific hub, of course. I can assign a project to that, Revit version, and so on. I can use different credentials later on in the system when I'm creating that project or doing tasks and things like that. So it's a huge improvement over the old way of just having a single login. So again, in the server tab here, when I go to my settings, which we've also, I'm not sure if I mentioned this anywhere in our presentation, but we've kind of consolidated all the settings all in one place now. So it makes it easier to get to. Even the logs here are all in one place. Instead of having two separate ones, we have logs here, and system and application logs. So that's some new advances there too, to the interface. But again, we have the OAuth settings here where I can come in and add additional credentials. So I can rename, assign it to two different projects, and so on. And again, when I'm in the projects, there will be other settings when I'm uploading files as to where I'm sending those credentials here for tasks. You can see authorization here, and I can choose whose authorization to use for any of these tasks. So if I'm accessing a file and only this person has access to it for this project, I can set this project to use that person's authentication. So that's a new setting right here to have that ability. So again, multiple OAuth settings, and we can choose during project creation which ones we're using, and of course during tasks there. And we also have that within Box and Dropbox as well. Another nice addition here is the way we've updated the Add a Task tool. So instead of having to pick from a long list that was hidden and you have to kind of search through everything, we've updated our task page so it's much easier to see all the available tasks and easier for you to find the tasks that are required for your projects. So again, in the Clarity interface, now when I'm creating a task, and I go to Set Up Task here and I go Add a Task, they're all shown here. So now I see all the tasks that Clarity can do. I look under the category that I need. Maybe I need to print PDFs or any of those things right here. There it is. I would click on that. And then it's the normal process for creating a task. It's just that, again, we've tried to make this a little bit easier so that when you're setting up tasks, you didn't have a big scroll box to go through to try to find the one that you needed. So really setting up tasks becomes a lot quicker now. Now you see what's available as well. Another part here about current tasks and tasks that are in progress, whatever, is that we now have the ability to easily delete them. We can move the priority. So a project coordinator, or I should say a administrator, has the ability to take projects here and change their priority. So if there are some running right now, they can use this arrow here to basically move projects up the list. Obviously, a task that's running is going to continue to run, but any task beyond that, the administrator can go in and reorder them into priority if they need to. Also here, which is nice, is that when you change your organizational structure of the grid, it remembers that. So you don't have to keep coming and changing. If you leave the page and come back, you have to redrag the type up. And the fact that you can't do that here is that you can reorganize your tasks. So if I go into the software here, and maybe we'll take a look at completed tasks. So I have a long list of completed tasks. I can now say, hey, well, I'd like to organize this by type instead. So now I can see I have 1 for indexing families, 12 for model metrics, 6 for database exports, and so on. And then I could look at each of those groupings of tasks by type. Or it could be based on date or any of those things that you basically want to do, or just show me the ones that have a status. So here's my status here. I have ones that are all completed, or if I had any error ones that have those, again, I can increase my date range, hit update, and now I can see I have 13 that have errored, 162 that have gone through. I can see the ones that have problems instantly. I can see the ones that don't have issues. And again, I can pull those back here. But if you pull this out, the status, for instance, and I leave the page, and I come back into the page, it will remember those settings. So I don't have to keep reorganizing and moving that status back. When I go back to setting up tasks, or completed tasks, I should say, you can see that the status is still there until I move it back, so it doesn't reset that on you like it did in previous versions. So other project advancements, and this is actually kind of a nice tool here, is the ability to deactivate a project. So if you deactivate a project, it doesn't delete it, but it does stop all the tasks and everything running on it. It basically puts it, it's like a giant pause button, and it pulls it out of the list of available projects here. So you can use this filter here to basically control whether or not you want to see the deactivated projects. So when I come in here and I go into my project page, I have some projects that are deactivated. I can use this button here to show a deactivated project, and I can see that these two here are deactivated. I could access the project here, select the edit project, and activate the project and reactivate that, and yes, activate the project. And now it's available again back on the home page. So it's a great way to just pause all your automated tasks, pull it out of the list, but not necessarily delete the project. So it's not like archiving it, we have to pull it off and then restore it later. You can instantly just turn all the tasks off, turn the project off, wait a month, and then reactivate the project by just turning it back on, and all the tasks will then start running again. So it's just a nice ability to be able to see them, control that without totally deleting it, and we can manage this view so we only see the relevant projects that are currently active right now. So very nice feature there. Next thing here is also kind of nice. It's occasionally you'll need to rescan the files, make sure maybe you've updated the version or something happened. You need some different versions in there. You used to have to kind of dig down to find the request rescan button. So now it's right in that home menu, right in the edit project menu. You can request that rescan right away, and it's very easy to manage now. So again, when you're in the project, that is right here, request rescan. Makes it much easier to access now. And that is something that you are doing occasionally, so it's nice to be able to get to that easily. Another thing that I do like here is the ability to have the file size also in the updated file list. So now when we look at our projects, we also have the size of the file. So we, of course, have how many times has it been saved as central, who's the last person who modified it, and Revit version, and so on, but now we also have the size. So we can keep an eye visually on how big our models are and understand how they're going to perform. So it's nice having that information right on that dashboard there for us. Some other new features here is the ability to have schedules or reports that cross multiple projects. So this is nice where I can basically tell Clarity to say, hey, give me a family search on all the projects, and I can see a certain family is used on all these projects, or I can see all the rooms across all the projects. Maybe I have a bunch of similar rooms projects, and the programming says that, well, the lobbies have to be between 100 and 150 square feet. So I could check that on all my projects of a certain type, making sure that they're following those rules here. So right here I have that ability to create different types of reports and gather metrics on that. When I run the report, it asks me, well, which projects would you like to run that on? So here I can select multiple projects and run a report, but just on those. So maybe I'm looking to see if a certain family type is being used or anything like that. I also have the ability here, again, with the report, the same thing, family usage across projects, like I was mentioning. So I can see here that I have, many types of 2,000, pipe tees being used across all my projects, or which projects I have listed, ones that I basically look for. Another nice tool here is Untracked Models. So now on the server page for the BIM manager, I can see if people are using models that are not in the Clarity system. So maybe someone started a new project, and maybe the rule is that all our projects are in Clarity. I can go into this page and see models that aren't in Clarity right now. Someone's opening it, they're working on it, it's a project file. So again, using that Clarity add-in, being that that's logged in, it will see if you open any models that are not actually in the Clarity environment. Maybe that's okay, but again, this allows you to make sure that people are keeping their projects in Clarity if they need to be there. So in this case here, we can see that there's a model that someone opened, and it was opened by this person, and it was reported on a certain date, and this model is essentially not in Clarity. If this model then becomes or gets put into Clarity, it will be removed from this list and we will no longer see it there. So we also have an ability here for model activity tracking. So here, we can actually go in and see what people have done to a model. So this is not per individual, although there is more data available using tools like Excel and Microsoft Power BI. So here we can go in and I can see that for this model, we've spent half an hour on it. There were 20 elements added, 40 elements modified, 3 elements deleted. And the same for some of these other models here. So this basically allows me to look at total time that people have spent on a model. So this is an aggregated report, not of an individual user, but all users on the project. So it just gives us the ability to really track that information. Again, it's using that Revit Clarity add-on there. So definitely good for understanding how much effort we're putting into a project, how many hours have we been in it. Another tool here, and this is more for scripting, is we built a command line tool in. So it enables you to script, certain actions on the Clarity server. So you can list tasks, you can pause a task server, have them to stop for a minute, resume them, start a given task based on the ID, archive a project automatically, and also create a new project. That's a big one for a lot of my clients have asked. Is there a way that I can create a script that if someone needs a project, they can automate the creation of it? So that BIM manager can just hit a single button, have a script run, and create a project for someone with basic settings already applied. So that's, again, this allows that type of ability now. CAD Management. So now what we're able to do is just get information about the workstations we're using on our projects. So we can get information such as add-ins we're using, what Revit versions are installed. So if you see that, you can come in here and say, hey, I can't get into this project. Well, it might be because they have the wrong Revit version installed. And what build are they using too? They may all be using 2018, but is it the right build of 2018? You can see here that I have 2 people who are not using the same build. So as we know, for project health and make sure projects are good and not going to have any problems with them, we want to make sure that everyone is on the same common build. So this way I can instantly go in and see, oh wait, some of my people in my staff don't have updated Revit software. So I need to make sure that they're using the latest build or the build that's qualified for this project. And I can see when that was done. I can also see what add-ins they have. So this is a really nice tool for the BIM manager to be able to come in and see where this stuff is, the status of all the versions of Revit being used in an office in a large firm. That's really hard to track to figure out, does everyone have the latest patch installed and so on. So again, all this is going to be accessible in this case, again, on that server page where the BIM manager has access to CAD management here. So I can see my personal workstation. I can see the versions of Revit that I have installed on it. I can see my Revit builds that I have for each of those versions. I can see more details about the workstation here. I can see add-ins that I have in the system here. So I have different types of add-ins in there. All of that is basically listed here. So definitely some nice features there for just more BIM management tools, keeping my company's software healthy. Another tool here, of course, is Transfer Project Standards, which is very similar to the one that we have in Revit. What we're doing here is automating the process. So now I'm able to take maybe a target project and automatically transfer those standards to those projects. So this is not necessarily to replace this task in Revit. It's a way to automate the task, and I think there's a few things in it that it does beyond what the original basic task does. But the main intent here is to be able to automate this. So this can happen on every project, so that maybe every time you start a new project, you use a template project, this can be one of the templated tasks. You just hit a button and it copies standards from a very specific file. So again, works like any other task, and you just tell it where the source project is and what things that you want to basically bring in. Another tool, new task here, of course, is Dropbox Inc. So we have a tool here that will synchronize files, and basically there will be settings here that are unique to Dropbox, Box, and so on here. So again, this will be able to automate certain types of moving files in and out of Dropbox storage service, or Box in this case. And you can use it for repetitive uploads from the BIM 360 system to Box, and that could be downloading from BIM 360 into Box, if that's what you need to do. Synchronization, where files need to be uploaded there. Same is also true with Dropbox. The same functions here, same types of things in there. Synchronization files, transferring files, storing things in Dropbox. And also, if you have ProjectWise, we have further integration here too, of downloading files from ProjectWise, uploading them into specific areas within there, and using post-action, moving them to other locations in the ProjectWise environment. So again, all of that can be automated as well. And also here we have a kind of a newer Dynamo script task. This is a simpler one. This is more straightforward and simple than the full Dynamo task. So this does have some limits, but it does support some dynamic input, but you can't really generally configure it very much. Again, this is meant for some high-level, quick, simple Dynamo scripts. But it's a quick and efficient way to run those scripts against, your models in the project there, either automatically or on demand. So with that, that is all the key new features here. So I can open up the floor to maybe any